Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, please pray silence and be upstanding for the worshipful Mayor of the Borough of Wigan, Councillor Susan Lamb.
Good evening everyone, welcome to Leigh Town Hall. Please be seated. The rules of conduct for governing the meeting have been circulated to all members in advance of this meeting, and hard copies have been placed on your seats. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening we have apologies from Councillor M.A. Dewhurst, Councillor S. Dewhurst, Councillor Jamie Hodgkinson, Councillor J.D. Hodgkinson, Councillor G.A. Fairhurst, Councillor M.A. Rompling and Councillor K. Stitt. Are there any further apologies this evening?
Councillor Bill Clark.
Councillor Bill Clark. Any more apologies this evening? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Item 2, the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of September. I will move the acceptance of these as a correct record. Leader?
Thanks to move, Madam Mayor. Vicar second, Madam Mayor.
Can I put these minutes to the vote? All those in favour of accepting the minutes, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 3, Mayor's announcements, and I'm sorry there are quite a few, but most of them to celebrate about. Wigan sporting achievements. I'd like to congratulate the following teams on their sporting achievements this season. Wigan Warriors Rugby League Grand Finalists, Wigan Warriors Under-19s Grand Finalists, Leigh Miners Rangers National Conference League Semi-Finalists, Leigh Miners Rangers Women's Rugby League Plate, Leigh Miners Rangers Open Age NCL Trophy and League Leaders Trophy. Once again, I wish to extend to the teams the best wishes from the Council for the success in the future. Top award for an ex-head, Peter Dalestrom, who was at Wigan Hope School. I'm pleased to report that Peter Dalestrom has received a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Pearson Teaching Awards in London. This was one of only 11 awards given out for exceptional contribution to education. The awards were televised on Sunday, the 25th of October. Peter has worked for 34 years at Hope School before retiring this summer. On behalf of the Council, I would like to thank Peter Dalestrom and congratulate him on this prestigious honour. Heart of Wigan campaign received North West Ambulance Services Cardiac Smart Gold Standard Award. It's with great pleasure that we can announce that Wigan Council's Heart of Wigan campaign has received the Gold Standard Award from the North West Ambulance Service. The Cardiac Smart Award recognises individuals and organisations who have dedicated their time to raising awareness of heart health, basic life support and encouraging the fitting of defibrillators in the community. I'd like to congratulate all those who have been involved with the campaign and thank them for their hard work and dedication. Support for Wigan Arrival Project. On behalf of the Council, I would like to thank the residents from across the borough who responded so quickly and generously to the recent refugee crisis appeal. The response was overwhelming, providing much needed supplies of clothing, medical equipment and other items for sorting and distribution to the two main charities of SWAP and Syria Relief. All remaining items will be distributed to local charities to ensure nothing is wasted. North West in Bloom. Following on from my report last council meeting, I'm pleased to report that Wigan Council once again swept the board at the prestigious North West in Bloom finals in Southport, winning 22 prizes. Wigan Council was also the category winner for the Best Large City Metropolitan Borough, winning a gold medal as well as the Adapters Housing Trophy. Wigan in Bloom also won the prestigious Clean Sweep Award, Glaston UK Trophy, for the highest level of cleanliness across all categories in this year's competition. As a result, Wigan in Bloom has been nominated for next year's National Britain in Bloom for only the second time in its history. 11 out of our 22 community awards were of the highest level, 5, which is outstanding. Shevington in Bloom won gold medal in the category of town, as well as the Preston Silver Dish as the category winner for the best town. Borough-wide Community Network won a highly commended discretionary award. Can I say well done to all those involved in the In Bloom Awards. Success of Local Democracy Week. May I take this opportunity to thank the members and officers who were involved in Local Democracy Week. Angel Asifa from Astley St Mary's Catholic High School became Mayor for the day after winning the competition. I enjoyed meeting pupils from the Federation of Shevington Primary Schools and Shevington High and Addison St George's and St Michael's Primary Schools at various events. Wigan and Leigh youth voice groups presented a seminar to councillors. Local Democracy Week aims to teach young people about the importance of voting and having their say, so well done to everyone. Town twinning visit to Angers. I should like to place on record my appreciation to the officers involved with the arrangements for town twinning visit to Angers from the 10th to the 13th of September. In particular, may I thank those who assisted with translation during the visit. Angers is a beautiful city with many impressive historical buildings, and the friendship and hospitality of the people will remain with me for a long time. That's the end of the announcements. Item 4, Declaration of Interest. Members are requested to complete the relevant forms provided in relation to their interests. The monitoring officer has provided advice to all members and relevant guidance has been issued. Members are asked to consider other disclosable pecuniary interests for the purpose of this meeting, and if there are any personal and prejudicial interests, then they must leave the room. Are there any further declarations?
Madam it's item 8A, the Gambling Act. It's a personal non-prejudicial as a relative of mine, a nephew of mine, is a lead campaigner in that policy, and he's actually a signature on one of the documents in the report, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I'm the same relative, so same interest. Thank you.
Agenda item 10, the trading in bill, personal non-prejudicial, an officer of the construction union Newcastle.
We got it before. Any others? Thank you. Item 5, update from Cabinet Portfolio Holder. I wish to invite the Portfolio Holder for Communities and Housing, Councillor Reader, to report under this item on the changing housing situation. Councillor Reader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. Colleagues, there are some major changes within Council Housing and the Borough, linked with the tax credit changes and major changes to the benefit system, and I've got to say at the detriment of the less fortunate in our society and the hard-working families. When I looked over the changes that are coming through housing, I made contact with some senior housing officers across the country, and the main focus that came back was that this will be massive changes, and I've got to say 99% of them saw it as an erosion of social housing that we see today. So to me that's very worrying. I mean, and they also said these are the biggest changes they've seen for decades, all at once. I would have to say I would like to give you a more in-depth view of this, but anything that the government seems to put forward at the moment, it's a one-liner and then it's more information to follow. That seems to be the kind of type. I would probably use the analogy that it's back of a fag packet time once again. Some of the changes which are happening, 1% reduction in rent over the next 4 years, estimated to hit the HR area about $34 million across the council. But this is good news for tenants, and it's something we welcome. But, and there is a but, it's because, just explain briefly what the HRA does. The HRA puts all the building projects forward for the borough, all the repairs, all the improvements, all the projects. So if you think about it, taking 34 million out of that pot, there's a big hole there. So naturally, because of financial management that we've done over the years, we're in a quite prudent position that we can actually carry on with some of them projects. But if we get it any harder with the HRA, for when the difficulties come in, we'll have big problems. When I said there's a but, if you've got tenants who are on benefit, they won't see any help whatsoever. So naturally, it won't make one iota people who are on housing benefit anyway, so 1% reduction doesn't matter. But what it will do, it'll lift the hard-working families by the new pay and stay policy. And I'll go into that a little bit in depth because some people might not know about it and I'm kind of trying to pick up the pieces on that. The pay and stay policy, and what the government have not said or said, whether this affects households or individuals or couples. So anybody earning over £30,000 income will be asked to pay an extra market rent. So if you take that, some people might think, well, that's quite a big figure. So if you took that as a couple, two couples earning 15 grand a piece, but I see more of an household. So if you've got 4 people earning in an household, you're soon hitting that £30,000 target. So then the people who have lived on our estates a long, long time, and who serve the community as much as anybody else in them areas. And that will increase their rent, and this on the Garden's figures to a certain degree. People on a £78 rent at the moment, that will increase to somewhere around £110 a week. That's on the pay to stay. Now, that's why I said a but with the 1%. So we've got a government here who's actually giving you 1% reduction and then shafting you all the way down the line. And like I said, that's a rough calculation, but if you put in, when I mentioned about the household, and you've got naturally parents and 2, if you like, not children, but 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 21-year-olds, because don't forget, we've done away with all the benefit for 18 to 21-year-olds. So an 18-year-old who's living in an house at the moment, and you've got the benefit cut, they will not be able to afford to stay in that property. So the only thing that probably most of them can do is move back home. And then they get it for the pay to stay at the moment. But like I said, there's lots of stuff you've not done it. And one thing I didn't touch on, the minus 1% increase costs this council and the residents and tenants of this borough 34 million. That comes out of the council's coffers, what we would spend. The pay to stay, which increases an income, goes straight to the government. So all that money goes to the government. So we've got to pay, we get in with 34 million, but we don't get anything in the end still. The other one, there's two other points I want to get in. One of the major ones which I see as being a really massive thing is the end to lifetime tenancies. Now, we don't know whether this is going to affect people who are already in council properties or new tenants. We believe it would probably be new tenants. So you've got somebody who comes and takes a council house, and we said to them, we're going to review that in 5 years. So what we try to do in this borough, and the leader and the deputy leader has been pushing people getting to work, getting jobs, apprentices. So we want them to better themselves. And what do we say when they do better themselves? Get out to your council house and get a private rented house, because we're not letting you stay in that council house any longer. So what that does in essence is set to people that started it, it's pointless me going into social housing because you're going to kick me out in a few years' time. I think, and the sale, the other one, and I'm sorry, Member, if I do go over a little time, I think it's quite important. The sale of the high value properties for the HRA account. Okay, 1 minute. All right, sorry, I thought it was, I'm watching eyeballs here. What that means in a sense, what the government has said is, if we get a property which is quite valuable to the authority, so if we look and we get a property in Stanley or Shevington, and some of the areas where council houses are quite valuable, the government says we've got to sell that property. So you get a property worth 100 grand, we've got to sell that. We can't keep it as a council house any longer, so we've got to sell it. And have a guess where the 100 grand goes back to? The government. We don't get. So therefore what you get then is private landlords coming in buying their properties up. And we all know on all our estates, whatever political colour we are, our estates are dotted now with private landlords, and them are our biggest problem with everything that we've got. So, there's lots of difficulties. So, there's lots of stuff I could talk about the benefits, and I'll probably do that at a later time.
You're not going to talk about them now?
No,
keep it short.
No, I'll keep it short now, Madam Mayor. The current government drive is definitely for self-sufficiency, home ownership and a withdrawal of the welfare state. And we need to make sure that we protect the vulnerable in this authority and this borough. Social housing in Wigan will remain value for money. And where else can you get an energy efficient home with 24-hour security, repair service, annual safety checks and ever improving properties without a deposit? With the added bonus of help when you need it, advice and assistance, and a chance to be a big part of the community where we all look after each other. Madam Mayor, that's in essence what we do as an authority, but we're being pulled to pieces on this, to be quite honest. And I had a few, and I spoke to the leader, I had a few analogies here where we've got, i.e. Mrs. Such-a-Body, and what I was going to try and do was do a Jeremy Corbyn question time and ask James that I've been asked a question by somebody within the community, but I can't get to that point, I'm saying. But I think everybody in this room should be very aware of all the topics, and I'll send you this information because I think there's some real big dangers for us here and our tenants out there, and our working families who are going to suffer. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Allow me to speak. I don't think this council goes far enough. I've been dealing with council houses regarding contractors. Now, contractors seem to get a higher pay, and nobody checks on the workmanship, which we need to do. Example, Wigan Flats. The Eyes tender was won by £9.3 million. Then it was subletted, subbed until we got an inferior contractor who did the work for £2.3 million. Now, why are we paying £7 million out to contractors just because they're on the approved list? Now, it's things like this we need to look at. We've got high rents, we've got bedroom tax. We can abolish all that if we just look at what these contractors are doing to our council houses. I have brought this attention up to many a contractor with Wigan and Leigh housing management staff there, and they just stand there with a finger up the backside. They're frightened to death.
I'm sorry, can you be careful of your language, please?
Finger up the backside, what's that? May I remind the Mayor as well, it's up to the councillors to bring me to attention, not you. Now, under the rules, I believe
I think it's your memory that's failing, Councillor Bailey. Can you finish what you're saying and then we can move on?
Finish when I've got tonight to finish. Right, now we need to look at this further. You know, the things we do with contractors, we need opposition councillors on the committees to challenge people like this. We challenged a contractor, just on one example, and saved this council £24,000. But we can't run any more committees like that because of the stupid rules you put in.
Any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Fairhurst.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Reedy for the update. I think, to be honest, that was one of the best updates that I've personally heard, and I found it valuable and look forward to the information that he'll be sending out. That was really informative, so thank you for that, and important changes that we need to be aware of. One thing that kind of touched upon in the housing changes, and I'm sure it doesn't affect just my ward, or probably affect all our wards, and probably Greater Manchester, and the leader equally raised something that I was hoping that was going to be included in this item, and I think he did it publicly, about the disproportionate, the people that come in to Greater Manchester, which we're part of. We get a lot more proportionate than London does, and therefore we have a greater strain on our resources. Me personally, I'd like to know more what this council is going to be doing for the hard-working people of this borough, and how we can protect services for the hard-working people of this borough. And I'd welcome any comments from the leader that he mentioned in the public of what he's going to be doing to try and resolve this disproportionality. Thank you.
Councillor Grundy.
update, but for future reference, I do think if we're going to be raising what is effectively a major matter of policy, the opposition, in terms of scrutiny, should be given more notice than the Cabinet portfolio holder will be speaking on this item. I think in future, so that we know it's the issue of debate, so that we get a chance to study beforehand. It shouldn't come as a surprise to us what you're saying. It should clearly state the topic that you intend to discuss, and then we have a chance to be fully briefed and respond to it. Because I do feel that when we're talking about major topics, yeah, put it on the agenda. Tell us what you're going to talk about. Don't spring a surprise on us and then go, oh, you know, I wanted to ask James about this. Because to be quite honest, there are some things in terms of the detail that I'm not going to be able to answer. More than happy to have a debate on these issues. I know that it's very important for the borough. Put it on the agenda properly. Don't bring it up as a surprise in council meetings. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to contribute? Councillor Reedy, you've got a right of reply.
Yeah, you got it right. Can I thank you for your comments? I'm not sure Gareth praising me doesn't mean any good at this side of the house, but thanks for that. Bob's touched on the tenders. We've had this conversation before, and to be quite honest, I agree with you some of your stuff on the contractors, and we're working on that because there is some difficulties. But when a job's tendered for whatever price it is, that price is for the tender. It doesn't matter where it goes after that. If they sub it, fair enough. They've got to abide by what we do with them. So that's the way that works. But and there is some problems with contractors, and I've had that from our members in this chamber on that. So there is issues which we're actually working on at the moment. I appreciate what you're saying, James, but this information's been to scrutiny. So if you look through your papers I'm sure you read all your council papers back to front, you've actually seen some of that information in there, so you'd have been able to see. I'm sure this is what he's going to be bringing up here.
Thank you, Councillor Reedy. I'm also going to invite the portfolio holder for service transformation, Councillor Halliwell, to report under this item about the importance of electoral registration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The general and local elections that took place in May this year were the first to be held under the individual electoral registration system the government's brought out. This, as we know, has replaced household registration, where one person could register everyone in the household. Now everyone has that personal responsibility to make sure they're registered. Now last week we saw the confirmation of the government's policy on fast-forwarding the introduction of the individual electoral registration. By just 11 votes, it was confirmed that the cut-off point to confirm eligibility to remain on the electoral register will be moved to December 2015. Despite the recommendation of the Electoral Commission, the official watchdog, that the cut-off point should be December 2016. So in Wigan, we're trying hard to meet that deadline to get everybody on board within the borough. So far, 72% of households in Wigan and Leigh have returned their information, which will help make up that register. And this will be published on the 1st of December 2015. But that leaves a significant number of people who have yet to do so. And time is running out before the 30th of November deadline. So why does it matter? Well, it matters because the December 2015 electoral register will be the one used by the Parliamentary Boundary Review to determine the new parliamentary boundaries. What is clear, self-evident, is that they have placed the burden for the most radical change in the voting franchise in the last 100 years onto cash-strapped local councils. So the forthcoming parliamentary boundary and subsequent local government boundary reviews will be conducted on the least accurate electoral register for generations. There is nothing wrong with the principle with individual voter registration, but we have implemented this in the UK in the worst possible way. The government's own figures show that more than 8 million voters risk falling off the register, and it could be as many as 8,000 in Wigan and Leigh. Needless to say, such a discrepancy is not spread evenly across the population. It is estimated that 90% of those who are white, elderly and homeowners who live in shire areas will be registered, compared to 10% of those who are under 30, BME and private renters. We welcome the launch of the online voter registration, and we hope this encourages more people to sign up to the vote. However, under-registration remains and will remain a huge problem, especially amongst younger people. Around half of those aged between 18 and 24 are not registered to vote, compared to just 6% of those above the age of 65. The decision to bring the deadline forward 12 months is very likely to reduce the levels of registration further. The government, quite simply, should have given councils more time to collect registrations. Even though the population and eligible electorate are increasing in major conurbations, all will see a decline in their parliamentary representation at the next boundary review. We are in essence facing a reversal of the fundamentals of parliamentary and local democracy, where every eligible vote is of equal value, with some groups at risk of disenfranchisement. It is not the case that by ending the transition a year earlier than the original December 2016 deadline, that the Conservatives leave themselves open, are being accused of being gerrymandering before next summer's Scottish Parliamentary, Welsh Assembly and London mayoral elections. The whole saga hints at a cynical attempt to rig the system. I would, however, take this opportunity to thank all those residents who have already returned their details for our annual canvass. And we are one of 2 councils leading the way on sign-ups across Greater Manchester. And what I would say to residents and to members in this chamber, and most members in this chamber, I presume cross-party, but if you don't register to vote, you have no voice. So I urge all residents who may be watching, or residents who you may speak to through social media, and urge them to sign up and register to vote for the elections. We've got less than a month to go. Now, I'm led to believe our media team will be tweeting tonight with the some of the contents that I spoke about the need to vote and register to vote. And on there will be an online link that people can click onto. But our electoral teams are out trying to lift that vote as much as we can in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I would ask and urge all members, if they're on social media or whatever lines of communication they use, to ask your residents to get online and register to vote, otherwise they don't have a voice. Thank you, Madam.
Do any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Grundy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will partly agree with Councillor Halliwell. I do believe it is very important that we have as many people as possible on the electoral register. But I do say I disagree with him that this is something to do with gerrymandering or disenfranchising people. There have been some very serious issues, as we've seen in places like Tower Hamlets, of ghost voters, or fraud through postal voting, and these new mechanisms have been put in place to tackle that, and rightly so. And as someone who served as an agent in parliamentary contests before, I remember seeing flats, not necessarily through corrupt practices, but perhaps through a lack of cleansing of the register, flats with 10 or 20 people in there because people hadn't been taken off the register. But I'll tell you what we should do. I agree with you that we should take a lead as a council. There's nothing more annoying to a voter who actually pays the council tax and then goes to vote on polling day and finds they aren't registered to vote. We're taking the money off them, but they can't vote in local elections. So we should make sure, as part of that process, that everyone registered to pay council tax is also registered to vote. And I do agree with him, and we will certainly be doing our part as the opposition, encouraging as many people as possible to register to vote, because I will agree with him on this. If you don't vote, if you aren't registered to vote, you don't have a voice, and it is important to ensure that despite the changes, we ensure that as many people as possible are registered. And we'll be doing our bit to make sure that's maximised and happens. Thank you very much, Madam.
Any others wish to contribute? Councillor First.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I agree with the comments Councillor Halliwell made. And there's something that was important there. It's not just about, obviously, it's important to get people to vote, register to vote, so they're able to vote and cast their voice and their opinion. But if the 1st of December's registers are the ones that are going to be used for the boundary changes, it's going to affect all the boundaries, then if the people are wanting to engage in that process, then it's only right that they should get on that register, and we should do all we can, not just to tell them about it's important so you can vote next May, but equally so they can engage with the democratic process of any boundary changes that may affect them, because some may be pushed in towards what they don't want to, some may be brought in towards what they don't want to. But if they're not on the register, it's going to be difficult to get engaged with that process further down the line. So I think we should be stressing that point as well. I think there's a double hitter. I welcome Councillor Halliwell for bringing that to our attention. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Halliwell, do you wish to sum up?
Councillor Grundy's comments, some of them remind me of Central Office diktat. I think they've been using these excuses for a while. There has been instances of electoral fraud, there's no doubt about it. But you're using in my opinion, you're using a sledgehammer to crack a nut here, and the way that you've gone about it is completely wrong. Even the electoral watchdog has said you're wrong to do it the way you've done it, and you only got it through by 11 votes anyway. What I would say is, I do agree with the rest of them. We'll be doing our bit over here to make sure we get as many registered up to vote. What I would say, sometimes I think we become a bit blasé about this right to vote. I mean, it's only 100 or so years ago, many people didn't even have the right to vote. People have died for the right to vote. People have been to prison for the right to vote. For people to represent them. And I don't think we should forget that. And I know we've been doing that with the Local Democracy Week, which the Mayor reminded us about today, reminding young people what it means to vote and how important it is. So I hope with this small statement tonight, we can raise its profile a little bit more before this deadline hits us on the 30th of this month. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halliwell. That moves on to item 6, which is outstanding business from previous council meetings. At page 17, we have a report which details the outcome of 3 motions that have been referred from a previous council meeting to another council body or an external agency for consideration. The council is requested to note the responses to the 3 motions as set out in the report on page 19 to 21 of the agenda. Leader?
Move that, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor G.W. Fairhurst has submitted a comment under minute 45 of the Regulation Committee, which is Ashfield Park Town or Village Green application, and this will be considered at this point. Councillor Fairhurst.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak on the item. I know there's 2 elements next to each other, so I know this point is comments on the Regulation Committee, so I'll keep my comments at this moment in time to the protocol, which is the comment that I've submitted. The comment is, first and foremost, I guess, it would be hard not to say I'm disappointed at the outcome of the inquiry. I mean, that would only be fair to say. Something that's not only I have worked hard for, but something that people established have worked hard for. Whether we've got the outcome that we want, that's been debated and argued. One thing this report mentions and kind of highlighted, and it's kind of been stressed by this council a number of times, is the amount of money that I have wasted. The amount of money that I, Gareth Fairhurst, has wasted taxpayers' money. But yet, when you ask for the evidence, we get figures, which is drugs, to be fair, we need to get something to look upon. Now, the figure that is bandied about in the media, social campaigns and accounts by the council reports £36,000 approximately. Those figures, just in case anybody's not read the reports, we've got the inspector's fee of £8,500 approximately, give or take. We've got the objector's barrister's fee, that's Wigan Council barrister, £14,500. We've got the objectors, which council solicitor. Now this is worked out at £6,500 because that officer has done 100 hours worth of work on the application. We've also got the registration officer, which is also within council, at 90 hours, and it works out at 6,000. And then we've got miscellaneous of 450 for an admin bundle and 200 for press notice. But when you come down, forget who's, in fact no, has Gareth Fairhurst or any individual as a citizen in this council, on this borough, got the power to order, that's right, order a public inquiry? Absolutely not. Any citizen of this borough has the right to put an application in for whatever. They may be non-statutory, like a village green or something like that. It's then up to the independent inspector, who costs £8,500 roughly, it's up to him to decide whether there is a merit in that application to go forward or to reject it and throw it out. And therefore, if he throws it out, that's it. It ends. But it's on his advice and recommendation to the council that the public inquiry went ahead for Ashfield. So it's not on me if I said so. I'd love to say that I've got that power, but I've not. So, first and foremost, who ordered it? Well, it wasn't me. Although I wanted it, it wasn't me that ordered it. Then we look at the objectors, barrister, £14,500. Now, why should I be blamed for wasting that? There's me, little old me, representing the people of Standish. The council has a number of solicitors who work in-house, two are mentioned in this report. But yet the council went and got the highest paid London, not local, London barrister that cost £14,500. That was for 4 days worth of work, because that's what the inquiry was set at. Previously, the week before, I sent an email into the council to say, it looks like you're not objecting to an element of the village green. We can bin that off and therefore save it down to 2 days. To be fair, we would have got a barrister if we had 2 days. It was the fourth day that was killing us, to be fair. The council came back and said, no, we're going to scrutinise every single witness you have, which was going to be 14. So we had to go and say, right, okay, that's her right, that's a democratic right, that's the right of the process. On the Monday morning of the inquiry, guess what? The highly paid barrister that Wigan Council had employed at their own bequest said, not doing the witnesses, can we agree to save 2 days? I asked that the week before. The emails have been off to the press, been in the social media, but yet that would have been a saving. That barrister for £14,500 could have been cut down into 2. So therefore, these figures are not
I'm
represented.
sorry, Councillor Ferris, you're out of time.
Okay, I'll bring you one.
Okay, thank you. Leigh, did you wish to respond? Oh,
Madam Mayor.
right, okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to tell again first what it's all about. The application for village green status for Ashfield Park in Standish has been a complete and utter waste of public money, which has cost Wigan taxpayers over £36,000. And the message that I've constantly been told by the residents of Standish is that they were hoodwinked by the so-called councillor to pass over money for a failed campaign which was doomed from the start. As a resident of Standish, as you know, I can tell him that there is a lot of anger from the Standish community and they demand to know the answers of the missing collection and how he has spent it. Now, more people, Madam Mayor, are coming forward with the Council's proposals of the new allocation plan to protect our communities and green spaces. And I would like to thank Mike Warden from the planning who came to the new Standish Voice meeting to discuss the plan for Standish, and to our Deputy Leader, Councillor David Molyneux, who has been there for the people of Standish from day one, who has always maintained that Ashfield was safe for any kind of development. So to finish, I would like to say to Councillor Gareth first, Ashfield Park will not be developed. You had a waste of time in that inquiry. There is no shady Standish developer or any other developer waiting in the wings to cut a deal with our council. So please, Gareth, get on board with the council with the allocation plan or get out. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. I just wanted to confer with most of your comments. This has been a complete waste of money. Public anxiety has needlessly been raised. Assurances have been given by the council a number of times that there was no need for the application to proceed because the council had no intention whatsoever of allowing any development on Ashfield Park as alleged by the applicant. There's absolutely no need for this, and it's purely a political stunt by Councillor Fairhurst and a purely waste of public money and people's time. Thank you.
Councillor Molyneux.
Shall I have two?
Greedy as always.
I don't know how many times that you go through in your life when you get things wrong. We all get things wrong. Politicians get it wrong. And when they get it wrong, they should apologise. I've got it wrong. Because the more you dig in that hole, the deeper you're going. And at the end of the day, Gareth, with all due respect, you got it wrong. And I kept telling you you've got it wrong. I told the people of Standish you've got it wrong. I didn't hide, I didn't run away from it. I told people there is no intention, there has never been any intention of developing Ashfield Park. But it sometimes comes in handy for people at elections time. If you look when it started in 2012. Now I think I'm right. Gareth stood for the council in 2012. And it's a good ploy. We'll come up with a story that frightens people to death. And I am their white knight in shining armour. And I'm going to save the day. So, George, perhaps you could think of, we're going to develop Mains Park, or we're going to develop Firs Park. The idea is, no, we're not. Never have any intention, regardless of emails and regardless of tittle-tattle that he thinks he heard, we never, ever, ever intended to develop Ashfield Park. It is not in the plans now to develop Ashfield Park. He has a chance now to get involved with the allocations plan, and I'm being contacted by people in Standish who particularly want to talk about the allocation plan. And I've got to be honest with you, and I'm being very honest with you, because they don't think you're representing them correctly. And they are upset about that. So all I can say is, you've had a chance tonight, use that chance and say, yes, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. Because it was never further from the truth that this council was going to develop Ashfield Park. Thank you, Madam.
I'm sorry, Councillor Ferris, you have no right to speak.
Point of order, Madam.
I'm sorry, Councillor
Point of
Ferris.
order, Madam.
What's your point of order?
Point of order, the Constitution says you have to put a comment in, which I've done, so I've addressed that element. But equally now, members are allowed to, members now are allowed to free debate the three motions that have gone in. And that's the element. So I kept to the script before and just kept on the report for the regulation. I could have gone on about the Ashfield campaign. This is the element. So I've kept a script, Madam Mayor, and I appreciate the review the same. Thank you.
Right. I'm told that you cannot speak on Peter will give you clarification.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Fergus has no right to come back in relation to his comment. He makes his comment, it's responded to, that's the end of that matter. What happens now, the comment was item 9, which has been brought forward to this substantive report about the 3 motions which have been referred back, and it made sense to council to bring that comment to this point so they can all be debated together. Having said that, what we need to now do is move to the substantive report, which is about the 3 motions which have been referred back, and Councillor Fergus will have the right, as will all members who may have spoken already, all members will have the right to speak for 5 minutes on the substantive report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are you okay with that?
We can talk.
I'm sure you will indicate when you can speak. On my... sorry, I didn't notice. Apparently you put your hand up. Councillor Greeley.
Thank you. Just 2 items, really, what I'm a bit confused with. Councillor Davis has made an allegation about how did he spend it. What has he spent? Where's his money? What are you talking about?
The collection.
Sorry?
The collection money made in Standish.
Right.
To the people of Standish.
So he collected money on the people's behalf. Well, I'm sure he can be accountable for that. I mean, but Councillor Molyneux, if Ashfield Park was not going to be built on, why has this council paid a barrister to, Wigan Council's paid £30,000, not Councillor Fergus. So why did you appoint this money to be paid when you've no chance of building anything on Ashworth? Now, why didn't you relate that to the pub people of Standish? Come on, what about that?
We're sick and tired of doing it.
I think if we listen to each other, then we would know, wouldn't we? Is anyone else wishes to speak? Councillor Ferris.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak and sorting the discrepancy. I appreciate that. Okay, try to keep it on the regulation comments before about the figures that, if you work them out, that them 2 officers have paid, them solicitors are paying £111,000 a year and £125,000 a year. I bet sure their wives don't think they're on that kind of money, nor do the tax people think they're on that money. So these figures are just made up. However,
Members, please.
let's go back. Councillor Molyneux is absolutely correct that the issue was raised in 2012, and why? How did little old me find out about this building work that apparently didn't go on, although there's emails freely available on the internet at a blog site, or the blogs are available, and also from Wigan Council, where Wigan Council said, these aren't my words, these are emails from the planning department to Persimmon Homes. The car park has to stay, the playing area has to stay. Nothing mentioned about the playing field has to stay. So when the council says it was saved, actually, we know what we're talking about. We're talking about the car park, and we're talking about the play area. What we're not talking about is a playing field which subsequently the village green was about. However, so I asked a question a moment ago. I see Councillor Davis has disappeared. Oh, there he is. There he is. How did I find out about this in 2012? Like I just made this campaign up? Absolutely not. It was one of your lot that told me about it, although not directly. We all remember that infamous councillor for Standish, Councillor Emma McGurran, who was frequenting a public house and enjoying herself wildly and left some papers on. I just immediately in the house and ran after her with the papers, and she got in the car and got off and went on loop. Lo and behold, a presentation to the Labour branch meeting about the proposal sale of Ashfield, and the planning department and the council have got nothing. Now these are Emma McGowan's Labour branch meetings, not mine. So don't say I made this campaign up. It was one of your lot that was keeping this, and then subsequently left some papers behind. Oops, another mistake from Emma McGowan there. I'm sure you've got a lot to care about.
Councillor, whatever we might think, she's not here to reply. So please don't do that.
No, I'm going to withdraw from going any further on that one. However, Ashfield is important. Councillor George Davies says, get on board or get out. Well, unlike him, the people have elected me and they've not kicked me out twice. And you fail to understand that you actually should be doing in Wigan Central rather than running around going, I'm a councillor for Standish. No, you're not. You live in Standish.
I'm a resident of Standish concerned.
Councillor, it's not a question and answers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't interrupt my colleague over there, saying couldn't show me to take respect. What he's going to have, what the people of Standish are going to have, what are you lot going to have, is in May. Let's find out. We've just been talking about the electoral system, getting people on board. Let's see how they vote. Let's see what they want. And before we start hearing the excuses like in the last May election when one political group was saying, the other one was saying, well, you split our votes, oh my word. It's decided fairly by the system. We're all going to play by the same rules. Ashfield is important. Mere Oaks was important. 3 years before you shut it, you said, Councillor Crosby can't see him tonight, he's in his election leaflet, that Mere Oaks was never ever going to be closed. The Councillor Montague just said a moment ago, don't make mistakes, and we should apologise. I welcome if he wants to apologise for the failure of Mere Oaks. And while we're talking about wasting
Councillor, can we keep to the report?
And while we're talking about wasting taxpayers...
You're talking about elections, can we go back to the
Ashfield.
scrutiny report?
Absolutely. About the wasting of the money. Just weeks before that school shut down, £70,000 was wasted on a new highway.
It's not even on the report, Madam. It's talking about something.
Okay, must be an embarrassment. On Ashfield, I stand by every word I've done. I stand by every conviction I have on Ashfield. And we all know what's going to come. That after the next May election, there is no elections for 2 years. The councillor waiting. The developer is ultimately saying, we're still interested, comes available, we're having it.
10 seconds.
Thank you. Now the council said they're not going to build on the land. Well, we won the campaign. Thank you.
Leader, do you wish to sum up?
As a point of order, if you've allowed other people to speak twice this debate, others will want to do so. Yes.
I propose comment.
Apparently all members can speak because it's 2 different items. Just hang on. What?
Madam Mayor, the first time I spoke was a comment that I had to put in a number of weeks before this council meeting under the Constitution rules.
Yes.
So we can't just have a free-fall now. It has to be put in beforehand. Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Right.
Moved on. Move from that.
It will be explained to us again. Just hold on.
We're not on that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did make it clear that we had an item 9, which was Councillor Ferris' comment, which had been brought to this point because it was convenient to do so, because it was in relation to this report. And that Councillor Ferris has spoken on that, and that the comments have been responded to. Councillor Ferris, I did say that Councillor Ferris will have the right to speak on the substantive report, and I did say then that all members would have the right to also speak on the substantive report as well.
Okay. Councillor Muller next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You just like, you're trying to be amused about what people say and what people do. And there's just no lack of coordination whatsoever in some of the comments that you made. The fact of the matter is, and I'll say it again if it's hard for you to understand, despite what papers you pick up in pubs, and I think that's a bit of a funny habit, picking papers. but personally, and I've said it not just to you, but not just to the councillors, to the people of Standish, this council, I'll repeat it, let the camera pick it up, this council never has and never will have any intention to develop Ashfield Park. And as far as your campaign being successful, the people of Standish, Gareth, you're right. They'll decide in May next year whether you were right. I'm sure they will. But the amount of people, for whatever reason, contact me about Standish and complain about how they feel they're being represented is unbelievable. So I'm quite happy to see what happens in May, and I'm sure the people of Standish are. But then we go back to the last meeting. Do you remember the last meeting? When they told us about this bypass, because this is 2016, this is campaign 2016. The Standish bypass is 2016's campaign. That was the marker. I don't know what it'll be if he doesn't get elected, he'll come up with something else. But once again, we go to an outside representative. No, I'm speaking on this, what's in front of us.
Can we let Councillor Mullin finish his speech and then you can have your point of order? I said Councillor Mullin will finish what he says.
Well, the point of order is...
Councillor Mullin.
I think I'm speaking to what's down in front of us, actually.
Bypasses.
And the bypass is on this particular item. So I think I'm every entitlement to speak about the bypass. Now, this is why I understand he gets mixed up and confused. Because it's very clearly here about the bypass that you and your father wanted to propose at the last meeting. And it's very clear, the information we've got back from Highways England, once again, what nonsense it was. So this is another ploy leading up to the next election. But what I can say, and I will say, and I'll say it openly and honestly, what we decide in this chamber is we are the council. It's not a piece of paper that you pick up in a pub. It's not some tittle-tattle that you hear on a car park. This council decides what this council does, and it's this body. And sometimes I think you have a bit of a difficulty understanding that, because you are part of it as well. When it suits you to vote in certain instances, when you're making a decision. What I'm saying to you again is the decisions that we make are the right decisions, and that has been borne out time and time and time again, whether you like it or you don't. Thank you.
Yes, the Brewer.
Really actually spoke after we finished the debate. That's right, he did. He's already spoken on this particular part of it.
Can we just, we're just checking. Apparently the leader's correct, you did speak after. Please sit down. You can't speak, Councillor Brewer.
Hang on, I spoke after Dave Molyneux said his speech and Councillor Davies. Now I'm speaking up after Councillor Molyneux's had enough talk.
We moved on then to the next one, so you can't speak again, because you'll be speaking on the same thing. Sit down. Thank you. Thank you. Does any other members wish to speak? Just hang on. Does anybody else wish to speak on...
Madam Mayor, I really must object to this at the moment. I objected. You asked me to wait till the councillor is finished, and I did do. Then Councillor Smith raised a point of order. You heard him immediately. You've gone down to Councillor Ryder. She wasn't quite going to hear my point of order.
I am asking if anybody else wants to speak so that I know how many want to speak now before you speak, so that we know we've got a plan of how many, because whatever you said, then other people will want to speak about what you said. I'm trying to control the meeting. I want to know if anybody else wants to speak about this first before you speak about your point of order. I just want an indication.
I understand that, Madam Mayor.
Well, if you understand, can you sit
I
down?
want fairness because Councillor Smith stood up and Councillor Ryder. Councillor Smith stood up and you heard his point of order immediately. I waited patiently. I didn't ask me to wait for Councillor Morgan to finish, even though I didn't want to. I respected you. Please, just fairness.
What is your point of order?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the first being shut down. My point of order is, you addressed me, thank you, you addressed me when I was doing my speech, going off on topic. You even said, and you used the example of, you're talking about elections now, Councillor Ferris. Now, Councillor Morgan, you just did exactly the same thing. Again, we'd just like some fairness over this point. If it's good for the gander, it's good for the goose.
Unfortunately, Councillor Ferris, one of the items that we're talking about was about the bypass.
Madam Mayor, I mentioned the elections. You told me to shut up about the elections. Councillor Morgan,
talking about the roads. You're talking about the roads.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the bypass.
If he'd continued, I would have stopped him, as you did.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Any other members wish to speak? Leader, would you like to sum up?
Can I speak? You asked for another member.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolving totally to fast, we bring this to order. We're asking Council to note the reports that are before you, and they're very clear what the recommendations are. It covers wider than Ashfield Park. It includes the bypass. Therefore, Council was entirely in order in raising that point. I think what we've teased out tonight, Madam Mayor, is the reliability of the evidence that Councillor Ferris relies on to spread the rumours around Stonehenge. He picked up a paper in a pub. Well, I suppose it's better than picking up other things in pubs. But the paper belonged to Councillor at the time, Emma McGovern. Now, those people who knew Emma McGovern knew she had a fantasy.
Members, I would have stopped him. But you are now saying that that wouldn't happen. Well, it would have happened, but I can't do that now, can I?
You can.
He's not speaking. I can't stop somebody who's not speaking. Leader, would you like to continue?
I'm simply saying the evidence he relied upon for the allegations he made are not credible. No one would have used that as a credible witness in any case going forward. And yet that's all he had to rely on. And he used that to fan a fire in Standish. Why? How can we guess it was anything to do with local elections? I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure it was something very different. But there was no basis for that. And as the Deputy Leader said time and time again, there was never any intention of building on Ashfield Park. Never any circumstance would we consider that circumstance. And why we had to fight when Councillor Ferris raised this red herring of the village green was simply to get out of the way, to make sure this is a park. We've been making everywhere in the park village greens and so we don't need to do that. It is a nonsense. And fundamentally, he knows it's a nonsense. Madam Mayor, I have to, I think, respond to
allegations he made about Mere Oaks. It wasn't actually relevant on this. But if he's allowed to make comments that don't get challenged, because you made the allegation, then you were shut up. And I've really got to respond to that allegation, otherwise he's again going to spread rumours about Mere Oaks. And quite frankly,
Councillor, I did stop people from speaking when you were speaking. Stop interrupting.
I will say this to Council very clearly. Closing Mere Oaks was one of the best decisions we made. And ask the parents of the children who were at Mere Oaks if that's right. And they say, we did oppose it at the time, but really if we realised what better alternatives could have been provided with, we wouldn't have done so. Therefore, I have no shame on what we did there. It was the best for those children. We always do the best, whether it's for the children of the people of the borough, the people of Stanley. That's our intention as a Labour group. Madam Mayor, I think the other points that we need to raise is we're happy here to be open and transparent about what we're doing with Ashfield Park, with developments in Standish, and so on. What is pretty clear is some members of this council are not being open and transparent with funding that were raised for a particular purpose, and the people of Standish who contributed, I don't know how much they contributed, but on that particular case, have a right to know from those individuals where's the money gone. It's beyond simple hope. That is something that I think needs to be settled, or there ought to be some proper judicial investigation into the behaviour. This village green application was a waste of time, was a waste of public money, and who raised it all? Councillor Garrett Bennett.
Councillor, I'm told you have not got a right to reply, and I'm going to ask you to put your phone away. I've been watching you for the last half hour, and you're distracting me.
I've been
So
speaking for the last 20.
you have been, in between, you have been using your phone.
Point of clarification. What are your rules?
All those in favour of noting the report?
Councillor, Madam point of personal explanation.
Anyone against? Any abstentions?
Madam Mayor, I've just made a personal explanation request.
I'm told that there isn't.
On what legal basis? It's in the Constitution.
You said a right of reply. Are you changing it now?
If we want to get terminology right, I guess I'll call it whatever you want to call it. But I've just been accused and asked questions, therefore I have to write a personal explanation.
A personal explanation is about what you've said. What you've said. Not what somebody else has said. What you've said and has been misunderstood tonight. No, that isn't a personal explanation. No, it's not. It's not. It's relating only to some material or part of an earlier speech by the member, i.e., which may appear or have been misunderstood in the present debate. And you've got your phone out again.
Madam Bird, first of all, it actually says here, Councillor Fergus, the ruling of the Mayor on the admissibility of a personal explanation will be final. She's ruled. It's final. Move on.
Item 7. Constitutional issues. Appointments to committee places. The council is advised that the leader of the Standish Independent Group, Councillor G.W. Fairhurst, has failed to express his wish within the required time period as set out in the relevant regulations of 1990 to appoint a member of the group to the seat on the council's planning committee following notice at the last council meeting of a vacancy left by G.A. Fairhurst. Accordingly, council may now make such an appointment to the seat as they think fit, including to the members of different political groups than what the seat was originally allocated. Do any members wish to make any nomination in relation to the vacant place in planning?
Madam Mayor, can I move Councillor Frank Carmichael?
Is that seconded?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Can I just speak one second, please? Clarification.
Um,
An open transparent.
You can make a nomination.
Well, I'd like to nominate myself. Sit on this committee. The reason being, this council.
No, you can't do it. You can just nominate it. You can't do a speech of support. Is your nomination seconded?
Yeah, I'm going to second that, Madam Mayor.
Fine, sit down. Any other nominations? Okay. So can we have a show of hands for the first nomination we received? Councillor Frank Carmichael. Councillor Brealey. I think we all agree that Councillor Carmichael is elected to the planning committee. The person... No, it was just nominations. You can't speak on it. The person who's appointed, which obviously is now Councillor Carmichael, needs to attend training on the Friday the 6th of November or Monday the 9th of November, but you'll get the dates from Democratic Services. If you don't attend those to that training, you can't attend the first meeting. It's the first meeting after the training. Thank you. Item B, which is the appointment of local authority representative governors. The council has requested to approve the nomination for appointments and reappointments of governors as set out on page 26 of the council agenda. Are nominations and reappointments moved?
Thanks very much, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Can we have a show of hands for supporting that report? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 8, policy and budget framework items. Gambling Act 2005, Gambling Policy Statement 2016-19. At page 29, we have a report that has been considered by Cabinet at its meeting held on the 22nd of October and Licensing Committee at its meeting held on the 16th of October, and the Council is requested to approve the policy statement. Is that moved?
Thanks for moving, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Hunt?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. As the whole councillor for Wheeling Central, just like to say it's a welcome addition and a welcome change in terms of the licensing within town centre. And dare I say, Wigan Lane, I think it couldn't come soon enough in terms of some of the behaviour that goes on a Saturday night. So it's welcome by the three ward councillors in the city.
Do any other members wish to contribute?
Madam Mayor, can I ask you a question on a point of order? Because obviously we've declared an interest on the first bit of that. You put them both together.
No, I've not.
Sorry.
No, it was Councillor Hunt's mistake, not mine.
Right. Sorry.
We're just going to do ditto afterwards.
That's fine.
Do any other members wish to contribute? Leigh, did you wish to sum up?
No, we'll take Councillor Hunt's comments in anticipation.
All those in favour of accepting the report? Any against? Any abstentions? We've got a number of members who are not bothering to raise their hands. Are we very tired?
I'm sorry, but it's very difficult to, with a limited time, to read everything, because I'm a dyslexic. Now, last one, CD form with John Mitchell, on a number of occasions, never get it. So I'm sorry, I can't read everything. So that's why I'm not voting on it.
We'll just move on, but we could suggest something about that, but we'll just move on. Item B, Licensing Act 2003, Licensing Policy Statement. At page 93, we have a... Yes, Councillor.
You just said you could suggest something for Council rather than what you want. I would hope you would suggest, and I hope this whole council would suggest, and by your support, if that's what you're trying to say, that you wanted to offer support to Council Riley for his dyslexia.
Yes, of
Because
course.
I know.
Of course.
We'll make the suggestion and let's vote on it, Madam Mayor. You have the power.
No, it's not something that you vote on to give somebody advice.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can you also, for next meeting, Councillor Ferris, could you look at what points of order are, and then we won't waste time. You bring in points of order that are not points of order.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
At page 93, we have a report that has been considered by the Cabinet at its meeting held on the 22nd of October, and the Licensing Committee at its meeting held on the 16th of October, and the Council is requested to approve this policy statement. Is that moved?
Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Is that seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Do any other members wish to comment? And I'm saying any other because Councillor Hunt's already made his comment. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's the pages 133 to 137 that I'd like to comment on. In paragraph 8.2, it talks about cumulative impact policies being introduced in 2 areas, that being Wigan Town Centre and Leigh Town Centre. I'm actually a member of the Licensing Committee and was there when this report was considered. I suggested that there should be a third cumulative impact area. If you look at paragraph 8.12, in justification of why Wigan Town Centre is cumulative impact area, it says, in part, because it has 14 light tablways. I was doing some work about a year ago, and I was in communication with the planning department, and they were of the opinion that in Swindley, particularly in Standishgate and on Wigan Lane, that we were at about saturation point with fast food restaurants. And if I remember correctly, they said that there was 18. Now, they didn't break that down into whether they were late night or all day restaurants, but there was 18 fast food outlets. We worked quite closely, my 2 colleagues and I, with the Swindley Residents Committee. And there were an awful lot of problems with littering in that area. And much of the littering is coming from these fast food restaurants. I would include McDonald's as well, although it's not any of the 2 highways that I've mentioned. Now, at paragraph 821, where that section ends, it says the need for this policy to be, there is a need for this policy to be subjected to periodic review. And I'd like to have it recorded that I think we should have a periodic review for this to be, for another cumulative impact area, or alternatively for the one for the town centre to be extended to include the rest of the Standishgate, Wigan Lane, and the area where McDonald's restaurant is on Greenwell Street. Thank you for the question.
Councillor Howard-Smith? No. Councillor Walker?
Thank you. I just want to, one of the consultees on this was Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service, and as your spokesperson on this particular body, I particularly want to bring to your attention, because I think it is important when we're talking about protection of the people of the borough. And clearly, because it's the night before bonfire night, and that's why it's particularly important to get this message out, we have got a serious problem with Chinese lanterns. I know that the council has been approached on this particular issue, and I do believe that in the not too distant future it will be discussed at Cabinet, but I want to emphasise how important it is for the protection of the people of this borough. Thank you.
Any others wish to speak? Okay. Leader, do you wish to sum up?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I understand that the points raised by Councillor McLaughlin were raised in the licensing committee, were fully considered there, and they didn't make a change there. So I don't think we're going to overrule the licensing committee that had the detailed work there. But clearly these areas are under review, although I think actually in the list on there that certainly may not be the next on the list, even if it was to be a review. But clearly we are going to review how that works out and change it. Councillor Walker and his colleague Councillor Bryan certainly have raised the issue of the Chinese lanterns in the council, and we are responding. As Councillor Walker suggested, I understand the report. Well, I've seen a draft report that's going to come to a future meeting of Cabinet, and obviously that will come back to Council, and you will be able to make comments to see whether it does fit in. But clearly, they are potentially a major danger of causing a fire, and we want to do our best to sort of limit the impact that there can be in there. But as long as the wind's not blowing over from some kind I'll move on.
All those in favour of accepting the report? All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. When you do the report to Cabinet, can we make sure they're called sky lanterns and not Chinese lanterns? Item 9, question and comments on the deliberation of Cabinet and Committee under Rule 8, 1A and B. I understand there are no further questions or comments. Item 10, notice of motion. This motion has been submitted by the Leader of the Council, Councillor Smith, and I would remind him that he does not need to read out his motion. It is set out on page 151 of the agenda. Leader.
Madam Mayor, I feel there's an air of deja vu around us. For those who don't speak French, indeed, we've seen it all before going on. And I was reading in today's paper that the Thatcher children, the real, not the ones we blame, but Margaret Thatcher's actual children, are selling off memorabilia of the Iron Lady to raise a few bob, obviously. And it's said that we should make sure we don't lose this memorabilia for the nation. I'm not sure this part of the nation would be a loss if we didn't get that. But the trade union bill seems to my mind to fit into this, going back to the 80s, going back to times when there was much more confrontation on the industrial scene, and now they have a majority in the House of Commons, but not reminding in the House of Lords. But they brought this unnecessary and unwanted bill. And it's attacking fundamental rights of working people. Rights that have been, in any form of free society, people have the right to withdraw their labour if they don't want to do so. That's a, if it was in some Tuckney state in South America, which passed some of these laws, would be claiming it was undemocratic, and yet we're trying to get away with it here. Rights that have been fought over by our forefathers in history, from the Tolkien martyrs onwards, the right to form and join trade unions, and so on. And this government is now trying to undermine. One of the problems I suspect is it's now part of the European Convention on Human Rights. And clearly, the Tories don't like to proclaim anything that's European in the same. But, is it necessary? That strikes the problem. In the 1970s, the average was 13 million days lost to strike action every year. Last year, the last measurable year, the figure was 700,000. Much less, much more acceptable figure. And that means for every trade union member takes a day on strike for every 15 years of employment. Hardly a nation that's constantly on strike. You know, they're taking, this is clearly an ideological attack on trade unions and trade unionists. And, you know, what are the proposals like? Bringing in agency staff if people go on strike. Strike breakers. You know, that's what used to happen in the 19th century Wigan when the miners went on strike. To bring miners up from Cornwall and Wales to work for pits against them. And the blackleg miners, as we called them in those days, were not well welcomed in Wigan. And I don't think agency staff will be much welcomed either. They're making tougher mandates for people to be able to call a strike. Well, you know, there doesn't need to be a proper mandate, I will accept that, but can I remind colleagues that in the last general election, the vote for the Conservatives was 36.9%. That would never pass their mandate for trade unions to call a strike. You know, how can they say it's absolutely necessary for trade unions to do that? And you know, the vicious thing about check, simple technique where there's a good employer who simply have a system and take trade union subscriptions off people's wage and profit source. It's easy for us as an employer to do that, and easy for the trade union to collect the money. They're banning it in the public sector. Why? What is there really to ban about that? Last summer, the government set up what they call the Regulatory Policy Committee, which was meant to cut out red tape in government activities. And they examined the trade union bill. And the one trade unionist they have on the committee, because he felt in conflict of interest, didn't take part. But the business people did, the academics did, and everyone. And unanimously said this legislation is not fit for purpose. Not fit for purpose. So, why is it? It's sometimes difficult for us actually to sit in this chair. Remember, we're doing so from the perspective of employers. We're the employers ultimately of the staff of this council. And we believe, and hopefully the motion shows, we want to work with our staff, build stronger relations with our staff, so that we can get good service for the people who are here. And quite frankly, this bill will do nothing for us as employers to be able to achieve those objectives, which on behalf of the people of the borough. You know, we want to work with our trade unions, work with our staff, through the JSC as we do at the moment. That's the way forward, and not to find such aggressive anti-trade union activities that the government is forcing on us as an employer if this bill is passed. So, as I say, we ought to make clear that Wigan, along with many, not most local authorities, feel this is unnecessary, unwanted legislation. We should have nothing to do with it. The government should rethink this and actually find a way of working together with trade unions, because what this country really likes, if you look at the economic statistics always there, we've got very poor productivity. The level of output from workers in Britain is much less than it is in many other countries. And if we want to succeed as an economy, and we all want that, you know, I want to run down this country as an economy. If we want it to succeed, we ought to work together, management, trade unions and workforce, to get productivity up so we can get a high wage, highly efficient, highly effective economy. And this is not the way to achieve that. So I hope colleagues at the council will remember the responsibilities and vote for this motion as the employers of our workers. Thank you.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor, I reserve the right to speak.
Okay. Do any other members wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Moody?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's slightly ironic from Peter, because over the years there's been many occasions where the trade unions have sat around the same table as Peter, and clearly there have been differences there expressed by both sides. But the underlying pinning of the collective bargaining machinery is that you get on with the business, and you had to meet next week and the week after that. And for all the differences, you put them to one side and collective bargaining actually works. But this trade union bill will actually scupper an awful lot of the good work that's done by both sides of industry, the trade unions and the employers. And I'm speaking from a personal non-prejudicial interest because I do work for a trade union. But in terms of this particular bill, and just to add to what Peter was saying about the thresholds that are going to be introduced, the thresholds for industrial action balance, 50% of those entitled to vote participate, but in the public services, which we are, there's got to be at least 50% turnout and 40% of those entitled to vote to support industrial action. Well, what does that actually mean? If 500 people voted, 250 must vote and 126 must vote in favour. In the public services, 250 must vote and 200 must vote in favour. The reason I'm saying that, because look around this chamber here. Think of the threshold that we have in terms of being elected to this chamber. And think of the threshold of being elected to the member of the parliament and the threshold to become a government. The thresholds that this particular trade union bill are introducing are far, far beyond what the thresholds are everywhere else, and indeed across other industrialised countries. So it's hypocrisy to suggest that the trade unions should be separate and different. The same goes for check-off. Because people quite willingly allow the employer to take money out of their wage packet because they quite willingly join the trade union. What's wrong with that? In fact, many employers actually charge the trade unions for that actual activity, and it's cost them virtually nothing. So the trade unions actually pay for their members to have their subs taken out. And it's quite clearly an attempt to run down the trade unions in terms of their membership and in terms of the support that they've got. And the second thing is in terms of the type of strike action. You ask the question, well, why has it been introduced? I've got a bit of a graph here that maybe supports what Peter was saying. You can't see that, but it's quite readily available. And there's a big blip round about 1926. I think we know what that was, a general strike. There's a couple of blips round about 1971. I remember that was the first minor strike. And there's a little blip, as people call it, as the winter of discontent, and the minor strike in 84. But the rest of it, you can't see, because there's nothing. The industrial action's not been happening. So why is this bill being introduced? And it's quite clearly not to allow people to have access to representation. It's not for access to justice. If you look at the fees that people have to pay for industrial tribunals, employment tribunals, the number of people that are going there has fallen by 80%. Why? Because they have to pay. It's all about access to justice and whether or not it's right that people have to pay for access to justice. And who else supports or is about to say that the trade union bill is unacceptable? Well, here's some of the comments that people have put in terms of the second reading of the bill. Where they recognise trade unions can play an important role resolving disputes. They lead to, and if they don't, they lead to deterioration in goods in terms of tighter restrictions. In recent times, our experience of working with trade unions has been a positive one. It goes on to say, we know that some of the most deprived workers in our society are less fortunate and may be employed by less scrupulous employers. I'm not including Wigan in that. In such cases, we continue to recognise the importance of a strong trade union within a workplace to moderate the behaviour of such employers. Now that's from the University of East London, that's the Vice-Chancellor. It's not your leader of your so-called militant trade unions. It's not somebody there who's quite happy to stand on a picket line. It's somebody who recognises the importance and the value that trade unions have in our society. Not just within Wigan, but across the rest of the country as well. And all the other restrictions they're trying to bring in terms of the picketing legislation, the notice periods that people have to give, the agency workers that people refer to, even restrictions on using the social media, the ballot paper regulations, and they're bringing in the certification officer to actually bring more bureaucracy. Why? To stop people taking action. Now that's not a sign of a government that's on the side of the trade unions.
Please, Councillor.
They quite clearly believe the trade unions are the hidden enemy of the state. They are the people who need to be resisted. And bringing in laws like this is the way they're going to try and do it. This bill must be resisted, and please support the resolution. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bryan first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Allow me to speak. There's a couple of... It's the main item and then the next one, really. Will you councillors believe in a strong relationship with its staff? Well, I'm not surprised, really, because its staff gets legal support paid for by this council. And it's a known fact that, Councillor Smith, it's a known fact that an officer who's got redundancy got legal support to try to prosecute an elected opposition councillor. Now,
Councillor, can you keep it to the motion?
Keep it to the motion.
No, you're going off at a tangent. Just trying to keep
Oh
it to
no,
the motion.
Councillor Mullen, you just said that people have to pay for legal support. Yeah, leave Labour and take next.
Can we not have discussions between
No, you don't need to go for legal aid because, like I said, this council pays for employees to take prosecutions out on elected members. But the elected member, we don't get nothing. We didn't get any support whatsoever. And it's happened again to an opposition councillor. You mean, they've been accused of doing something, and they've not done it. But they've got legal support. The council staff...
Councillor, I'll tell you again, you're going off at a tangent. You're wasting your time talking about something that you shouldn't
I'm wasting my time because you're wasting my time on here. My minutes are going and going.
No, it stops the clock when I interrupt.
Right.
It does. Can you keep to the motion about trade unions, not about individual members of staff?
Well, this is what it says.
Can you do that? If you can't, then sit down.
Well, I'm reading off the motion.
Yeah. It's about trade unions.
No, it says there about staff relationship. Best large council to work for. Does the unions work for the council?
No, it's about the relationship between the council and the trade unions, their staff.
Well,
it's not about...
Well, you're saying here, I'm sorry, but I mean, this is my understanding of it. Wigan Council believes in a strong relationship with its staff. Not its union, its staff.
Councillor, when you came in, did you get this piece of paper? Have you got it on your seat? Has somebody got that? At item 5, it says the decision of the mayor or the chair of the meeting shall be final.
Not that. No.
Right, I will read it to you then. The decision of the mayor or chair of the meeting shall be final and not be open for discussion. It's not open for discussion. Stay with the motion or sit down.
Well, I'm stopping with the motion.
It's not for discussion. Get on with it.
Just said it. Well, just said it. Why do we not get support, legal support, Councillor Smith? Again, giving legal support to
members. I've warned the councillor. He's decided. Yeah. He's decided to stop. Thank you.
Yeah, stop.
Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Madam for allowing me to speak. It's a shame it's not been took seriously. It's a really important subject for many working people out there. In the 1979 election rally, Margaret Thatcher said, "As you well know, for over 100 years since Disraeli and before the Labour Party existed, it has been the belief of the Conservative Party that the law should not only permit,
but it should assist trade unions to carry out the legitimate functions of protecting members. I think it's fair to say those that know me know that I'm no fan of Margaret Thatcher. And I'd just like to say she obviously decimated the coal and steel industries and left a legacy of greed and self-interest. However, she did have qualities of statesmanship and leadership, something that is missing today in the toss that operate the Tory party. It's been touched on in relation to agency labour, and that's a point worth noting, that even Margaret Thatcher didn't see the need to alter this. And there's also serious issues around agency labour in terms of, you know, most of these agency people will be low clericals, so they'll be buzzed in. I'm sure a lot of them will be migrants, and they'd be buzzed in. And I just think it's like pouring petrol on fire, something like that. And it would cause all sorts of issues. It really is something that needs to be looked at. The bill's obviously been condemned, and it's, as Peter's alluded to, it's more suitable to some Colombian despot rather than a Western democracy. I think one of the provisions that wasn't mentioned, but I think should be mentioned, was it's a sinister move in terms of having to wear a badge or an armband. I believe it's going to be a triangle, it won't be the Star of David, but it'll be a triangle. And it's all part of demonising trade unions. That's what this bill is all about. And including it's been spoke about the attacks on the facilities term and check-off. Check-off's not a problem. You can have anything took out your wages in terms of a charity, if you like. You can pay to anything you want. Private business don't see it as a problem. And we've got some the CBI. It's not a problem for the CBI. You've got Rolls-Royce, Jaguar Land Rover, Siemens, and many others all provide a check-off facility. So there's no issues around check-off. It's clearly, as has already been mentioned, an attempt to undermine the trade union movement. And the work that reps do in the workplace, in my opinion, is second to none. I see it firsthand every day. And all the evidence shows that union workplaces are safer places and have less accidents and illnesses and save around £30 million saved in absenteeism. They receive better pay, and as already been suggested, more productive. I work on a project in which just been come out of mothballed at Hinkley Point. EDF, a state-owned company, obviously in France, has come in and insisted there's a tripartite agreement on that job for no other reason than they know that it's more productive. It's insisted that government, trade unions, employers will work together. And that's a French company coming here telling us how we should conduct industrial relations. And I think that's absolutely appalling. Has to be remanded. And this is so-called to make us more democratic. Well, in your dreams, isn't it? I mean, you know, as has been said, you know, party that got in on 30% lecturers on democracy. And abstentions in this bill, I mean, all right, if we've done it in the general election, abstentions are counted as non-votes. So we'll have some of that in the next general election. Absolutely unbelievable. We've also suggested what's called e-balloting, you know, online balloting on smartphones. You can do online banking. Now, the TUC's actually put proposals and said, yeah, we're happy to make it easier, not got a problem with that. Not having none of that, not having no e-balloting. But it was okay to e-ballot for the London Mayor election for Zach Goldsmith. Probably an appropriate name for a Tory, but there you go. And the right
so you're going to have to wind up.
Well, I mean, the right to withdraw one's labour is a fundamental human right, and any restrictions put on this, in my opinion, can only be considered as bonded labour. In all my years of union activity, I've never met a worker yet that wants to go on strike.
That's time, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Fairhurst.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak. So much to speak about and so little time to speak on. We started off with Councillor Smith, who started off about going back. This feels like deja vu, going back in time, going back to the 80s. But, I don't know, maybe it's appropriate for the Labour Party, given that they've just elected a new leader who's also gone back in time to the 80s. Out of order, but it's firm. It's also gone back in time and taken all members on board. There used to be, I won't say his name, an opposition councillor, quite a colourful character, very vocal, very passionate, also joined the Labour Party, again I don't understand, so again gone back into the 80s. So, yeah, maybe it's appropriate that Councillor Smith talks about going back in time, because that's what seems to happen to the Labour Party. They've gone back to the 80s. Now then, on the issue of striking, if people have a legitimate process, democratic process, in place to strike, they should be able to strike. That should be anybody's right. I don't think there's any argument about that. But equally, if a group of people or company or whatever goes on strike, then equally has an impact on the people that they serve. For example, I don't know, if banking staff went on strike, would you all be so vehemently opposed to it? Or would you be saying them bankers are being so-and-so's again because they won't let access to our money? Why is it good for the goose but not good for the gander? If people want to strike in hospitals, which may be coming up, it may be appropriate, that seems okay. Which is fine, that's a legitimate right. But then you kind of barrack anybody that wants to work. And there may be workers that actually want to work and not strike. Don't we also have a right for public services? If somebody legitimately strikes, and then you actively stop somebody going in, carrying out that job, and one of your parents got seriously ill, one of you got seriously ill, would you say, it's okay, don't treat me, I know you're on strike? Or would you want somebody there? Would you want somebody there to treat your family member? I know I would. Would you?
I'm sorry, I know he's asking questions, but you can't answer them.
Madam Mayor, I actually take that as a personal threat when somebody just shouted out, it can be arranged. And I think in the current climate...
Councillor, you shout out enough.
Oh,
get on with your...
What, somebody I've never threatened anyone in this chamber. Somebody just threatened me. And you do nothing, Madam Mayor. And it's okay, and I noticed.
Councillor, sit down. Sit down for a moment. I did stop the person speaking. You might not have heard it, but I did.
Well,
now, you can carry on discussing the motion, or, as I said with the other councillor, you can sit down.
Madam Mayor, if you did say it, and I will check the tape later, I apologise now that if you stop that person from making physical threats to myself. Which, you know, if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine, if that's the behaviour. Back to the motion. Councillor Moody says, Councillor Smith has been in many disagreements with the unions over the times. I'm guessing that would be the point of, again, back in history, Mere Oaks, when they obviously didn't want it to shut, but he said it was the best decision ever. So we know what conversation Councillor Moody's talking about there. Councillor Hunt. Councillor Molyneux talked about fairy tales and he kind of disbelieved earlier on in the meeting. Yeah. He kind of welcomed France's intervention of bringing unions into the equation. These are the people that block our ports most summers. But yet, he kind of be barracking about people blockading. Or is that okay? I know he can't answer, so I won't expect an answer. However, it's got to be fair. If somebody has the legal right to strike, and there's a process in place, they should be able to strike. But equally, if somebody wants to work, they should be allowed to work. They shouldn't be forced not to work just because they want to, and somebody else doesn't want them to. Now, we talk about building stronger relationships. I would hope that would be fair of any company, and I don't think there's any company, or probably any government, that wants to do that. Who doesn't want to do that, sorry. So that element of it is going to be welcomed. And I know finally Councillor Hunt said about, obviously the Tory government is just greed. That's just after the money, that's what all this is about, just greed. The Labour Party never did that, especially Tony Blair. How much is he worth? I end there. Thank you.
Councillor Grundy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I must say I am especially amused by being lectured on how moderate and reasonable the trade unions are by especially Councillor Hunt, the man who compares the Conservative Party to the Nazis. You know, and you're saying you're not militant and hard left. You know, yeah, the Labour Party has gone back to the 80s, and let's hope the election results reflect exactly the same as they were in the 1980s. I mean, where to start? Well, you know, we'd like to say that you can still join a union. Well, you can still join a union. That's absolutely not going to change. You're going to be able to join a union. You still have the right to strike. The thresholds to me seem perfectly reasonable. Absolutely perfectly reasonable. And as for the point about, oh, well, under an election, you know, you'd have to get this, you couldn't reach this. Well, I'll put it this way. Kath Woolton could in the local elections this year. She got over 50% on a turnout of 65%, something like that. So it is doable. But let's be honest, right, there's only two options on a strike ballot. On a ballot paper, you don't have, you know, it's not like on the strike ballot, you don't have yes to a strike, no to a strike, and UKIP. You know, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. You have two options. And what it will do is ensure that when people go out on strike, instead of a hardcore and militant, you know the workforce is behind that strike. You know the strike is genuine, there's a genuine issue, it's not nonsense, and it's got to be addressed. Absolutely fine. In terms of facility time, well, part of the reason this was disappearing was because people were abusing it left, right, and centre. They weren't using it to help the union members. They were using it to run political campaigns and organise strikes. We all heard about them in the last Parliament. I believe they were termed pilgrims after a lady called Jane Pilgrim, who was on £40,000 a year as a nurse, but hadn't worked for years because he was a full-time union organiser. That is an abuse of taxpayers' money, and it cannot stand. And I'm glad that they're getting rid of it. Basically, it's about time that these issues are addressed. As for the organisation of the pickets, and well, let's be honest, that's already there. It's non-statutory. It's in the code of good practice. It's just being moved to a statutory basis. I don't see why this is being brought here tonight, because it's not an issue for this chamber, it's an issue for Parliament. And I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm glad it's going through. Oh wait, yes, I do know why it's coming up. But because 85% of the Labour Party's funding comes from the trade unions. And that's why, oh, goodness me. So yeah, let's be honest, it's going to pass because you're all going to vote for it. Because this is the truth of it. You're not here representing the taxpayer, the people that pay your wages tonight. You're representing the trade union barons, the people that pay for your leaflets. And it's absolutely I'm glad this trade union legislation is going to pass. I'm glad it's going to be introduced, and the public will be better off for it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Halliwell.
I think most trade union members in this room today would recognise that Councillor Grundy knows absolutely nothing about modern industrial relations. If he did, he would have come out with something sensible. Instead he hasn't. He's trotted out another central diktat from his office down in London, and he wants you all to believe, along with Councillor Fairhurst, that every trade union is chock full of militants. Well, you've just shown your naivety, Councillor Grundy. Because I am in a trade union. I've been in one of the two different ones, and I've had lots of positions, and I've chaired them, and I've been part of other trade union activities. And most of the industrial relations I have had on both sides of the fence had nothing to do with militancy, and I didn't feel an air of militancy in them. And Councillor Smith was actually right when he said the level of strikes that have happened is the lowest it's ever been for donkey's years, as Councillor Moody pointed out. So you're wrong. Most of the modern trade union relations that take place with businesses today, whether you're on this side of the fence or that side of the fence, is done in a proper manner. And all this is done, and you touched on it, you want to remove funding. Your government want to take funding away from the trade unions and how they carry out their political activities. And you've just shown your true colours. Well, whilst we might be supporting trade union, it's quite clear who you support tonight. Bloated bankers and the rest of the mates. We've got bloated bankers and the rest of them who put this country where it is now. And just for the record, it wasn't Gordon Brown or a Labour government. You was playing Casino Royal with the world economists, and your buddies put us in this mess. And I don't mind speaking up for my trade union colleagues, because they can't speak again, but I'll tell you, they take great exception at being called militant. And that just shows how little informed you really are. Thank you, Madam.
Councillors, I've got 2 other people to speak before the summing up. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Right, you're the last people then, so we've now got Councillor Thorpe.
First of all, Councillor I think it's time we got into the real world, right, and listened to what is going on in society. Because when the firemen went on strike, they still had emergency cover for anyone that was in danger. When the doctors go on strike and the nurses, they're going to have emergency cover for anybody in danger. Right, that is where the Labour Party comes from. We care about people and we look after people whether they strike or not. And both of you, yourself and Councillor Grundy, you need to read a book called The Ragged Trouser Fell Out of This. And then tell me if you don't need unions.
Any Labour councillors are on the social and drawing money as a councillor. You tell that to your residents and your
Councillor, you have spoken, you're not speaking again, and it's irrelevant. We've got Councillor McLaughlin, then Councillor Edmondson, then we've got the Deputy Leader, and then we'll have a sum up. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just start by saying how gratified I am to be associated with a council that has been identified as the best large council to work for. I'm quite surprised that I've heard 2 speakers from the bench to my left here who've talked about the Labour government winding the clock back. I think in the context of this debate, when we're talking about the introduction of a trade union bill, I don't think it's us who's winding the clock back. In fact, I think the whole thrust of this present government and its period in coalition before that is to wind the clock back, looking at what we might call the post-war settlement, and they're not going to be satisfied until they've unpicked every single advantage that came to ordinary people from the post-war settlement. We now have record numbers of people.
Councillor, I'm sorry.
What's your explanation, Madam Mayor? Because I've just been accused of saying something which I clearly didn't. That's what I want to address, if that's okay.
Would you sit down a moment? You've got 1 minute.
I won't need 1 minute, Madam Mayor.
Right, okay.
Councillor McLaughlin just said I said that the Labour government were in the clock back. No, I didn't. I said Councillor Smith said they were in the clock back. So maybe facts need to come forward.
Councillor McLaughlin.
You might talk about the Labour Party winding the clock back, to going back to somewhere where we were before. Nobody will be talking about Standish independence doing that, because you haven't got any hinterland. You're a fresh starting. It can't be done. Anyway, it is wrong in the context of this debate to talk about the Labour Party going backward when the Conservative government is dragging the country back. And Councillor Grundy also mentioned about how the Labour Party is funded. Now, the Labour Party arose out of the trade union movement. They wanted a political party to represent them. So it's not surprising that they will seek to fund the party that they created. I'll put this to you. It's the cleanest money in politics that funds the Labour Party. It's quite clear to see, that's why you talk about it so much, because the arrangements are as clear as daylight. Now, if you look at the funding of the Tory party, well, it's very, very difficult to find out who does fund the Tory party. But we do know in certain terms. I mean, it used to be said that the Conservative Party is the Church of England in politics. It's actually the City of London in politics. And Councillor Halligan talked about the cause of the downturn. Well, the cause of the downturn was caused by the financial institutions, the hedge fund managers, etc. Exactly the people who fund the Tory party. And, you know, it's a relationship that works both ways. All we're trying to do is we're trying to divert attention from the real cause of the downturn. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My dad was a miner, and I lived through probably the last great strike that this country saw in 1984-85. And I've got to say, I'm absolutely appalled that we have members in this chamber tonight that think they can treat industrial action that people take as a joke and use it for their own personal little fun to start going off on tangents about other people. I can assure you, nobody goes on industrial action lightly. Nobody chooses not to be paid for work. But what they do choose is to join a collective of other people that want to be protected from bullying, from all kinds of discrimination. They want to be paid fairly, and they want a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. That's what unions are about. May come as a shock to some people, but that's what they're about. I don't think it's befitting some of the comments that are made, some of the glib, sort of little throwaway comments that are made. I just don't think it's actually on, and I don't think people that watch this will think it's on. Sorry?
So you want to get in the real world?
I'm sorry, we don't have question and answers.
So,
Councillor Brearley.
what I would like to say is, for all those people that think unions are a terrible thing, and unions shouldn't represent members and allow them to ballot for strike if they wish to do so, pay back every sort of holiday pay that you've ever received in any work. Pay back your sick pay that you may have ever had in any kind of work. Let yourself be bullied and discriminated against at work. Then, and only then, will you have a right to put down the unions that fight so hard for the rights of people. To use a common heard phrase in this chamber, and for once I think it's actually right, this bill is nothing but an absolute disgrace. Thank you.
Councillor Muller next.
I think a lot's been said tonight, and I think it's quite clear that some people just want to get rid of trade unions completely. I think that's the top and tail of it. It started back in '84, actually, David. Unfortunately, there was a break for them in between it, but now they're back and they want to get rid of it. So let's not forget that. And can I say to you all, because I was there in the 70s and 80s, when people were fighting for sick pay, were fighting for a 37-hour week, were fighting for paid holidays, because, shall I tell you something, you were never offered them. Because they always thought it was better for you not to have representation. And that, unfortunately, is the aim of the bill today. It's most important that we work closely with our staff to ensure that the union's involvement in moving forward and in discussion takes place, and we allow them the right to strike if necessary. It is wrong that we have a diktat from this government who is totally opposed. They don't like using it anymore, but the working class of this country. And that needs to be stopped the best way we can. Now, I don't think, and Terry touched on it, we should ever apologise, and Mike touched on it, about where our funding comes from. The number of panorama programmes that take place, talking about the funding that goes into their pockets, is frightening. many of them who don't want to pay tax in this country, don't need a trade union because they don't live here and they don't have any shortages that we know about. This is a government, and if we want to talk about banks, this government has created a number of banks and they're called food banks. And that comes about because of their diktat in destroying the working man. And that's what it's all about. Give people the right that they deserve, and that's the right to strike if necessary. Support the trade unions in their battle with this. We as a council should support that as an employee, and we will. So thank you, members, for your support.
Leader, do you wish to sum up?
That's a challenge, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure if I should sum up on the motion or sum up on the debate, which seemed at times to be quite different topics that we're discussing. But I will say, personally, I'm very proud of the work I did as a member of a trade union. I was branch secretary and chairman. It was only an FE lecturers union, but never mind. Whatever sector you're in, you need to be have the collective work together. And so I've no share of that. And if you come into my room in the town hall, you'll see on the wall a plaque that was given to this Labour group for the help and support we gave in that 1984 strike. And again, that's in private place. We'll do the right thing again. But I did start off, I tried to remind you, because it's sometimes difficult to wear hats, different hats at the same time. But we're actually here as employers. We're actually here to say, what is the best thing for Wigan Council as an organisation in relationship to the staff members we have? We want that to be a strong and effective relationship because we need our staff to provide the services for people. And we're not going to get improvement in any of those relationships if we get the vicious and vindictive stuff that's in this trade union bill. It's meant to divide us from our employees even more than we are. And Jim's right, I've had a few tussles with trade unions and usually come off on the right side, but not always, and that's life and that's collective bargaining. But you know, we go in there and they're trying to do the best for the members, and I'm trying to do the best for the people of the borough. The gap isn't that wide, but we need to work together with all our staff and our trade unions if we're going to make sure this council can survive the further 60 million cuts this government's imposing. But I think in some ways, in his offhand way, as usual, Councillor Grundy gave away the plot. What they want to do is actually destroy trade unions because they want to destroy the Labour Party. That's what it's about. It's about actually changing the democracy of this country. And I'm, again, not ashamed, I'm proud to have been a Labour Party member, a party that was founded by groups of socialists working together with trade unions to get representation of the working people of Britain. And a lot of the legislation that's come through that's helped working people have come from that coalition of members. All of the rights that we've got in the last century given that. I'm very proud that one of our members, Ian McCartney, was behind the minimum wage. What a big difference that made to many people in this borough. Now George Osborne offering a living wage, which is neither a living nor a proper wage. It's disgraceful. We'll still need to fight for those people, and I know all of my colleagues will stay strong. We'll fight for the people of this borough as much as we can. And whatever this bill does, we'll try to keep strong and effective relationship with our members of staff, because that is the future, it's not the past.
We're going to move to the vote. Can I have a show of hands for people in support of the motion? And against?
Surprise, surprise. There we are.
And abstentions? Thank you, members. That concludes the business of this evening. Can I remind you that the next council meeting will also be held here at Leigh. Thank you.